Welcome to the Frequency Labyrinth. I am Adrienne McDonald, your host. This podcast is for you if you're done with surface level self-help and ready for something deeper and actually transformative. Around here, we work with ancient wisdom, human design, gene keys, and shamanic practices, not as knowledge to collect, but as tools to live by. This isn't about one size fits all. It's about learning to work with your energy, your design, and your life. This is about integration and embodiment. We go deep here with ancient wisdom, practical integration, so that you can develop ironclad self-trust. Let's get into it. Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about the full moon in Leo, which is coming up on February 1st. That's Sunday, and it's going to be peaking at 5:08 p.m. Eastern Time. Now I'm going to talk about the cosmic mix. I'm going to give you some things to consider by the human design profiles and a little example in my own life to sort of wrap up and show you how you can use this info. Okay, so the full moon in Leo, I don't think anything in Leo arrives like subtly or quietly, right? Comes with a little heat, a little emotion, a little bit of tension. The kind that's going to ask you to notice where you've been bending yourself out of shape to maybe belong, and where you may have been withholding parts of yourself because it may feel safer to stay unseen. And because we're working with the Leo Aquarius axis, which always brings us back to some fundamental questions. Who am I when I'm not performing for the group? And who am I when I'm not hiding it from it either? And let's look at the lunation from the human design gates. As the sun is already moving through gate 19, the gate of wanting, which is sensitivity and need and attunement to what's missing, and the sometimes uncomfortable truth about dependency, because the shadow is codependency here. And the moon is illuminating gate 33. It's not in the same gate as the sun, this particular lunation cycle. It's in the gate of privacy, which is retreat, reflection, and ultimately revelation. So this full moon isn't about dramatic declarations for the sake of being seen. It's a full moon that's about being a little bit more reflective, honoring your needs without collapsing into codependence, and choosing when and how you're seen rather than sacrificing yourself for approval. So gate 19 is the pressure of need. It lives in the root center. It's not necessarily mental pressure. It's more like you feel it in your body, somatic pressure. The pressure of need, the pressure of wanting closeness, of safety, reciprocity, resonance. It's not just like a personal psychology thing. It's like an ancient survival wiring. This is your body knowing what it needs before your mind catches up type of vibe. This is the ancestral memory of what happens when the tribe fractures. It's when resources disappear, when connection breaks down. And at its shadow frequency, the gate collapses into codependence. But understand, codependence is a corruption of something that might have been sacred at one time. When we think about the ancient times of tribal interdependence, we are supposed to need each other. The problem is when that need becomes distorted by scarcity or fear of abandonment, by the modern isolation structure that tells us that we should be able to do everything alone. Hello, hyper-independence. And Gate 19 starts scanning the environment, people, places, relationship, and asking, okay, what do I need so I don't lose this? What do I need to to become, to stay connected, to belong? What parts of myself are negotiable? And now place that sensitivity near a Leo full moon. Leo wants expression, visibility, authentic presence, and gate 19's like, but at what cost? And that's where a lot of people get tripped up, right? If you're operating in the shadow, because Leo energy can feel like I need to be seen, but gate 19's like, do I feel safe being seen as I am, and with my needs intact? And this full moon is exposing about where wanting approval has quietly turned into self-sacrifice. Not just in the obvious ways, but in the subtle ones too. Like the half-truths, the emotional self-editing, the instinct to, soften a bit without maybe even anybody asking you to. So let's bring in the moon. And the moon is activating gate 33, the gate of privacy. And this gate is about understanding something that modern culture has mostly forgotten. Not everything is meant to be shared in real time. I know putting everything on social media is so popular, but really, do you have to? Do you need to? Gate 33 needs retreat. And this is not about avoidance. It's like processing and digesting things. This is almost like a shamanic descent. It's going underground into the cave, into the inner world to retrieve something that can't be accessed in the noise and chaos of everyday life. In shamanic traditions, there's a certain kind of understanding that certain wisdom has to be incubated in the dark before it's ready to be brought into the light. You don't come back from the underworld and immediately start narrating what you saw. You sit with it. You let it settle into your bones. You let the experience transform you before you go out and try to translate it for other people. Or at least you should. Now, gate 33 needs space to reflect and metabolize experience and decide what actually holds wisdom before turning it into any sort of narrative. Not all knowledge is meant to be shared immediately. It really isn't. Some truths are just sacred, and privacy is the container that keeps them sacred until they're ready to be out into the world. And under a Leo full moon, I feel like this creates this fascinating tension because Leo wants to express now, and gate 33 is like, slow your roll, not yet. Something wants to be acknowledged, something wants to be honored, but it doesn't want to be exposed prematurely. And this full moon is asking you to really slow it down and don't go all out and put your heart on display. It's asking you to discern what's sacred, what's private, what's just for you for right now, and what's ready for revelation and what isn't. And in gate 33, revelation comes after the retreat, after the truth has settled, after the emotional charge is cooled enough and is ready to become the insight. When you go in the cave to retrieve the medicine, but you don't bring it out until it's ready to be used. And, this is perfect for this time because we're still in the year of the wood snake. We're still shedding. We're still figuring things out. We're still in winter. And when we look at this from the Leo-Aquarius axis, because there's a lot going on in Aquarius right now. We're looking at a stellium in Aquarius. Sun, Mars, Venus, Mercury, Pluto are all sort of clustered together, and that's a lot of mental bandwidth, a lot of ideas of how things should be, and a lot of pressure to align with the collective narrative. Because Aquarius is ideology, systems, group narratives, shared values. It's a realm of this is what makes sense and this is how we do things now. And from a shamanic look, it's almost like a collective trance. It's the consensus reality we have all agreed to participate in so that we can function together as a society. And, there is a necessity for shared agreements, and we need a common language, and we need collective structures. But when you've got Mars and Venus opposing the moon, which is what's happening during this full moon, desire opposing feeling, action opposing reflection, relational needs opposing like emotional truth. There's friction, there's tension. And I'm not talking about like the kind that tears everything apart. This is the kind that makes you aware of perhaps where you've been performing a version of yourself that keeps the peace, but costs something. It costs you something personally that's very essential to you. And the Leo full moon sort of breaks that trance. And not necessarily through rebellion for rebellion's sake, but through like, okay, this isn't going to work for me. You know, what if I stop performing the role that the collective expects me to do and just show up as I actually am? And with Pluto in the mix, this is deep. This is structural. This is about power dynamics underneath belonging. Who gets to decide what's acceptable, what's valuable, what's worth expressing. Like all of that's being looked at from a revision at this point. And Leo full moon pushes back. It says, you know, where have you been outsourcing your sense of belonging? Where have you traded your inner truth for group acceptance, coherence? And conversely, like where have you rejected connection because you're afraid it's going to require some sort of level of sacrifice that you're not sure you're ready to do? And Gate 19 reminds us that belonging is a legitimate need. Gate 33 reminds us that intimacy requires boundaries sometimes. And the full moon is teaching, I feel like the full moon is teaching like a different, more mature level of belonging, that the kind that doesn't require self-abandonment or isolation. It's like that third option. In fact, if I could, and I'm probably going to say this on multiple podcasts, if I could have a theme question for the year of 2026, it would be, what is the third option? Like because I feel like there's so much polarization going on in so many different areas and so much like black or white thinking that even if we choose one of A option or B option, even if we do the work to consider what is the third option, that's going to give us a different perspective. And with Mars and Venus opposing the moon, there is a real possibility of feeling internally split. Emotionally, something feels urgent. Mentally, there's a temptation to sort of analyze it away. Relationally speaking, there may be friction between what you need and what others expect. And then there's Uranus and Taurus squaring Mercury and Venus and Aquarius, and that's disruption. It's disruption meeting communication and relationship. This is like lightning strike energy, sudden realizations about maybe what you've been tolerating, sudden clarity about what you actually value versus what you've been told to value. And, you know, in shamanic traditions, awakening rarely comes through comfort. It comes through disruption. It comes through the lightning bolt that cracks open what, you know, feels previously like stone, through initiation that forces you to see what you've been avoiding. Uranus is that spirit, the one that breaks open those structures that have become too rigid, the relationships that have been, you know, maybe they're performative, maybe you're just phoning it in, maybe it's just like, this is not working anymore. Values that were inherited rather than chosen. But Uranus is also forming a sextile with Saturn in Pisces and Neptune in Aries. So there's this support for integrating these insights without having to blow up your damn life. You really don't have to blow up your life. Maybe you have to blow up your life, but probably not. Just slow your roll a bit. Saturn offers structure. Neptune offers vision. There's a pathway forward that honors both, perhaps the revelation and the reality. And especially like right now, this return to this inner wisdom, you know, Gate 33 doesn't rush clarity. Gate 19 doesn't deny need. Together they say stay with yourself long enough so that you realize what the truth is for you. but also you don't have to justify whatever that is. And with Uranus stirring things up, you may notice sudden insights about relationships and values or patterns of compromise that you didn't even realize that you were maintaining. And again, this is not about dramatic breakups or impulsive declarations. It's just awareness. It's awareness. So I'm going to go over the 12 profiles about how this could be coming up. And, sort of an orientation point. Okay, so 1-3s, this full moon may stir up a deep tension about wanting certainty and needing space to process recent experience. Your investigative line wants to understand, to find foundation, to get solid ground, but your experimental third line has been in the field testing things out, bumping into things that haven't worked. Gate 19 heightens your sensitivity to your unmet needs, and you may be feeling the gap between what you thought would create security and what you're actually discovering that you need. And Gate 33 is asking you not to narrate the lesson before it's fully lived. Like, don't go out and shout it out yet. You don't actually owe anyone the takeaway yet. Let the experience settle. The wisdom will emerge when it's ready and not when someone else wants the whole story. 1-4s, belonging is the core theme here. Your fourth line needs that connection. It needs community. It needs to know that you're part of something stable. But your investigative first line won't compromise on truth just to maintain harmony. Now, you may notice where you've been adapting to maintain connection rather than expressing what you actually need. The Mars-Venus opposition to the moon is particularly potent for you. There's a tension around what you desire relationally and what you're actually feeling. The full moon asked, can you belong without erasing yourself? Can you express needs without expecting rejections? I think that the tension is there for that. Gate 19 says that your needs are legitimate. Gate 33 says you get to discern who earns access to them. 2-4s. This full moon activates your natural rhythm of retreat and reemergence. Gate 33 supports your need for privacy. Your second line needs to withdraw. It needs to be left alone to process without being watched. But your fourth line also needs connection, and that can create this little internal conflict. And Gate 19 highlights where others may be pulling on you emotionally, wanting access, wanting your energy, wanting you to show up in ways that make you feel a little depleted. And this lunation is giving you permission to protect your capacity. You don't need to explain why you're unavailable. You don't need to justify your boundaries. The people who belong in your life will respect your need for retreat. The ones that don't, well, that's information too. 2-5s. There's a spotlight on projection here. Your fifth line carries projection naturally. People see something in you, assume you have answers, expect you to solve things. And your second line just wants to be left the hell alone to do your thing without the pressure of everyone's expectations. And others may sense something in you while you're still sorting it out. And that can feel icky. And with Gate 19 active, you may feel like your own vulnerability, your own unmet needs can feel very exposed, especially when people are projecting their own stuff onto you. And Gate 33 is really your ally here. You don't have to perform the role they cast you in. You're allowed to be in process. You're allowed to say, I don't know. Or not right now. This full moon is teaching you that withdrawing isn't failing. It's protecting your integrity. 3-5s. Hello, fellow 3-5s. This lunation can bring emotional intensity around past experiments. Your third line learns through trial and error, through bumping into what doesn't work. And sometimes that means that you've recently discovered something that looked really promising turned out to be a dead end. And that could be relationally, professionally, creatively. With Mars and Venus opposing the moon here, there could be a little bit of a sting, a little sense of, hey, I put myself out there and it didn't land the way I hoped. And your fifth line carries that additional layer of projection, people expecting something from you. And now that you're processing what happened versus what you thought would happen, or maybe what they thought would happen, that can feel a little vulnerable too. And gate 33 helps you step back and, okay, let's extract the wisdom here without like going downward spiral. You didn't fail, you gathered data. And gate 19 reminds you that needing support, needing to recalibrate, needing to tend to your own emotional needs isn't weakness, and you don't have to do it alone. It's just part of the process. The full moon says, take the lesson, release the shame. 3 sexes. This full moon highlights a transition from experience to perspective. Like if you're in your first phase of life, pre-30, you're in the thick of experimentation. Gate 19 may be amplifying where recent experiments have left you feeling a little exposed or perhaps a little uncertain. If you're in your second phase, you're on the roof, you're observing, you're integrating, you're gaining distance from the chaos of trial and error. And if you're in the third phase, which is after 50, you're stepping back into the engagement with some very hard-won wisdom. So wherever you are in the cycle, you may feel the urge to withdraw a little slightly so that, and it's not really out of anything else other than discernment. And gate 33 supports this. Not everything needs to be shared or explained. Some experiences just need to be metabolized privately before they become wisdom that you can share out. This full moon is teaching you that retreat isn't like resignation. It's part of the integration process. For 6s, community dynamics are front and center. Your fourth line is all about network, foundation, the people that you're connected to. And you're not casual about relationships. You're building something stable. You're building something that lasts. But your sixth line is carrying a certain objectivity, a capacity to see patterns other people miss. And you may feel tension about loyalty and authenticity right now. There's people in your network that expect you to show up in a certain way, maintain a certain role, hold a certain version of yourself. And gate 19 is making you aware of maybe what that's costing you, where you're managing other people's comfort at the expense of your own needs. And gate 33 says you don't really need to announce every realization, but you also don't need to keep performing a version of yourself that doesn't fit anymore. This full moon is asking, who would you be in your relationships if you stop managing how others see you? And for ones, this full moon can surface where beliefs around connections or belongings no longer heard. Like they aren't holding anymore. Your first line needs solid ground, needs to understand the structure, needs to know the rules. And your fourth line, building community, is based on shared foundation. But what happens when that foundation shifts? What happens when you really realize that beliefs or values that once held like your network together don't resonate anymore? And with Uranus squaring Mercury and Venus, there may be a sudden awareness and conversation that lands differently, a realization that you're having that you're like, this doesn't fit any longer. This foundation isn't solid any longer. Gate 19 brings up the need, and you may be realizing that you need something different than what your current community can provide. And gate 33 says take your time. You don't need to blow things up or make big announcements, but you also don't need to stay in misalignment to keep the peace. 5 ones. Others may be looking to you for answers right now as you're becoming more aware of your own unmet needs. Your fifth line carries that projection of the one who knows, the solver, the fixer. And your first line actually was that you do want to find the answer to figure it out and to get the bottom of it. But 19 is activating your awareness of your own vulnerability, your own needs for support and reciprocity and emotional safety. And that can feel a little destabilizing when people are expecting you to have all of it figured out already. But you're still investigating. And gate 33 offers you an out. You don't have to perform certainty when you're still investigating. You don't have to deliver solutions when you're still sorting stuff out with your own questions. This full moon is teaching you that you being in process doesn't disqualify you from being valuable. And sometimes the most honest thing you can say is, hey, I don't know, I'm still working it out. 5-2s, this is a powerful full moon about reclaiming sovereignty over your time, your energy, and your emotional availability. Your second line needs space. It needs to be called into the things rather than being constantly available. It needs to work in your own natural rhythm without being watched or managed. And again, we've been talking about these 5 lines. With the projection, people expect you to show up to deliver, to solve their problems, and that can be very exhausting. And gate 19 is highlighting where you probably have been saying yes when you should have said no because things were depleting you, right? And gate 33 says no. You're allowed to be unavailable. You're allowed to protect your capacity. You're allowed to tell people to be disappointed if that means that you stay intact. This full moon is teaching you that boundaries aren't rejection. They're self-preservation. Now let's move on to 6-2s. Now you may feel especially called inward. Your second line needs retreat, needs solitude. It needs not to be like, I don't need to be performing for anybody. Your 6th line, especially if you're in that second phase on the roof, needs distance to gain perspective. Emotional sensitivity is heightened with gate 19, so you're feeling the undercurrents, the unspoken needs, the relational dynamics that, other people might be missing. And that can be really overwhelming, especially if you're looking at the collective right now. So gate 33 is your permission slip to step back. The wisdom is forming now. You don't need to share it. You don't owe anyone access to your process. And with Mars and Venus opposing the moon, there might be a relational tension. People wanting more for you than you have a capacity to give right now. And that's probably true for all the projected profiles. The full moon is saying, protect your inner world. The people who matter will understand. The ones who don't, well, that's data too. And 6-3, finally our 6-3, this full moon may bring awareness to cycles that you're ready to complete, particularly ones around emotional compromise or overgiving. Your 3rd line's been experimenting and testing and bumping into what works and what doesn't. Your 6th line, depending on where you are in your life cycle, is either in the thick of those experiments, observing from a distance, or integrating the lessons into wisdom. But regardless, gate 19 is showing you where you've been over-functioning in relationships. The ones that you've been managing people's emotions, managing their needs, making sure that everyone else is okay while your own needs go unmet. And gate 33 is enough with that. Enough with that. You don't have to keep doing this crap. Especially for people who aren't reciprocating. You don't have to explain why you're pulling back. You don't even owe them that. The full moon is about completing a cycle of self-abandonment and stepping into a different pattern where your needs actually matter. Now, one last piece before you take this into your life. Now, what you just heard was your human design profile, and I don't believe that's meant to just stand on its own. Profiles describe how you engage with experience, but not where it's showing up in the area of your life. To really ground this full moon, you need to pair your profile insights with your whole sign house of where Leo falls in your chart. And you can find that on astro.com and go to whole sign house and then have that displayed for your rising sign. The profile gives you the lens, the house gives you the terrain. So let's use my chart as an example to sort of hear how you can work with this. I'm a Cancer rising, which means that this Leo full moon lands in my 2nd house, and that is the house of resources and values, self-worth, and what I rely on for stability. And I am a 3-5 profile. So with the sun in gate 19, this lunation brings my attention to where I am still negotiating my value. Not just financially, although that is part of it because material wealth is in the second house, but also energetically. And with the moon in gate 33, this medicine isn't just about having to explain or justify any of this out loud. It's to step back and let recent experiences that I've had sort of speak for themselves so I can notice where things are awry. And as a 3-5, there's always a temptation to frame this lesson really quickly. Like, let's just figure it out and move on, to extract meaning and offer it up. But this full moon is reminding me that not every realization needs to become a solution for someone else. Could be just for me. And that's an example of how the profile and house work together. So across all the profiles, this full moon is it's less about being seen and more about being true. True to your needs, true to your timing, true to what deserves privacy before it becomes public or wisdom. Leo is fire. The full moons are release points. If you're called to work with this energy physically, you could consider a fire ceremony, a candle, a bonfire, whatever's accessible to you. Write down what the full moon has revealed, and perhaps where you've been performing or compromising or withholding yourself, and feed it to the fire. Fire doesn't really judge what you're releasing. It just transforms it. It asks and takes what no longer serves you and turns it into light, into heat, into ash. And that is eventually is fertilizer for soil, for something new. So, some truths just need a quiet room first. Just a little incubation time. So that is what I have for you today. The next podcast will be the Cosmic Mix for February, which I'll probably drop on Monday, February 2nd. In the interim, I hope you found this helpful and insightful. I hope you have a beautiful weekend, and remember to find beauty every day and seek the magic in the mundane. Thanks for tuning in today. As always, take what resonates, leave the rest. Let whatever landed move through you in whatever way it needs to or wants to. And also, if you want to explore more, you'll find more information in the show notes. If this episode stirred something in you, please share it out or leave a quick review. It helps so much, and I really appreciate it. And remember, this work is about integration, and it always starts with self-trust.